Hi folks, in this video we're going to be looking at painting a quick and dirty way of painting your Games Workshop Munitorum pipes or the fuel pipes that come with the command set for 8th edition and getting them done in a nice dirty yellow scheme. These would also be perfect for any sort of piping you want for Necromunda. So without any further ado, let's cue the music. To start out with, I've given this section of pipe an all-over spray of Corax White from Games Workshop, but you can use any light off-white colour primer you want. Any of the contrast primers or white primer will do. And I'm going to be coming in with Ilyanden Yellow as the first colour from Games Workshop. Now this is a contrast paint and we're going to be basically smothering this pipe with this colour. If you're really concerned about leaving streak marks, you can thin this down with some contrast medium, or make sure that each time when your brush goes into the pot that you keep the brush wet. So rinse the brush off with the wet brush, put it into the contrast paint, and this will thin it down ever so slightly, which will aid in the flow. And there's no real secret to this, it's going all over and getting into all the nooks and crannies with this contrast paint, and make sure that you give it plenty of time to dry before moving on to the next step. Once our yellow contrast base coat has dried, it should look something like this. It's not particularly flashy, but then we don't want it to outshine our models. I'm coming in with my favourite instant grunge effect for any piece of terrain, and that's a 50-50 mix of contrast Wyldwood and water. And with this, I'm painting the bottom areas of this piping and anything that I want to be really dark and in shadow. And there's no real specific place I'm putting this. I'm just putting this on anywhere that I think I'd like to have tonal differentiation between a yellow and a much more grimy, mucky dark brown. If you think you go too much overboard with this step, don't worry, that's why we've mixed it with water. It's going to make it really easy for wicking this away with your brush, and you can always rinse your brush off and wick most of it away whilst it's still wet. Now this will have quite a long drying time as well, due to it being almost like a wash. But it's just a matter of going around everything that you think needs some definition, some shadows and some muck and some grime. There is no right or no wrong way to do this. And if you go for an area that's much more flat, you can rinse your brush off, and then with the wet brush you can go backwards and forwards over the edge of the paint and you can feather out the difference. And it's just a matter of going around until you find something that you think feels right. For the final step in adding some colour and definition to this pipe, I'm coming in with a dry brush of Phalanx Yellow from Games Workshop. And I'm focusing from a zenithal perspective on this. So that means I'm looking at the raised areas and the bits where the light would hit on the model. So for this, it's pretty much a top down and a 45-degree angle hit. And it's really important that the contrast paint from the previous step is absolutely dry, because we do not want any of that contrast paint leaching into our dry brush and ruining the effect. And with dry brushing, I always recommend doing a single light pass and building up the colour in various layers, rather than trying to get a smooth transition in one layer. If we do lots of little layers with dry brushing, then we get ourselves a nice smooth finish. And with that, this yellow pipe is now complete. If you really wanted to, you could come in with some metallic paints and pick out a few of the details, such as the switches and the dials and some of the smaller lamps on it. But in the industrial world, a lot of stuff just gets powder coated in a single colour, and that tends to wear away, irrespective of what that material is. So this is a really nice way of getting these pipes onto the table really quickly, and your models are going to look really great next to them, because your models are going to be painted to a much higher standard. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, why not consider subscribing? It's free of charge, it helps me out, and if you hit that notification bell, you'll get further updates like this in your YouTube feed. So, until next time folks.